A brand new card, reminiscent of the Power 9 and powerful enough for the King Cube? Oh, yes please. Sign me right up for that. I cannot wait. Greetings, hatchlings. I am back from my break from Magic the Gathering. I have returned to talking about one of my true loves. I can't help myself. Just when I thought I was out, they pulled me back in. Like previous times before, I have returned to the game. This was a very brief vacation, but it was a needed one. So I return rested. That's both relaxed and rested. I'm super efficient here, making up my own words to save time and then wasting that time explaining it afterwards. That's how I roll. Trying to get used to my new setup. I've got a new camera. I've got my cards over here. What we're gonna do is we're gonna talk about a brand new card from Ravnica Allegiance. Now to do so, what I want to do is take you through a trip of basically the great grandpappy of this card and then previous, what is it? Previous? Whatever. The forthcoming generations that spawned from it. What do I care? Alright, so we're going to start out talking about Time Twister. If you don't know about this card, this is one of the original Power 9 cards from Magic the Gathering. And it does pack a lot of power, alright? So for 1 blue and 2 colorless, it's a sorcery. Basically what happens is each player takes their hand and their graveyard, shuffles it into their deck, and draws a hand of 7 new cards. Now, the artwork on the original Time Twister is absolutely amazing. You look at it and you've got a wizard gesturing over with his hand. At the same time, you've got a warrior who's in front of him, who's literally being rendered down into his base elements. And it's pretty intense too, because if you look at the hourglass in front of the wizard, it's got a very like visceral gut kind of feeling to it. Like this guy is being pulled apart. It's kind of a little graphic and gross. It almost looks like a creature destruction spell, truthfully. If you look at the artwork from that perspective and like the darkness that's all shrouding around it, it's an incredibly evocative card. And I actually played with 4 of these back in the day in a really old awesome deck. I did a video about it. It's called my $30,000 deck. I will put a link at the end of the video if you want to go and check that out. And I recommend you do, because it's a hilariously wonky build full of really powerful cards and also really wonky cards. So you're going to want to hear about that. It's a lot of fun. But anyways, this was the original of the cards that we're talking about here, because we're going to go down the sequence of very similar S cards leading up to today's spoiler. I also want to touch on for a moment the Vintage Masters Time Twister artwork that they did. It definitely feels more Time Twistery in terms of you've got the big hourglass with the crazy spirals going on in it. You got those columns. There's a lot of purple in the artwork, which I like, and that movement of the art around it as well. It totally gives the feel of a gigantic hourglass that is indeed twisting time all about in crazy fashion. So I appreciate the original artwork of Time Twister more, partially because I played with it back in the day, and partially because the newer Time Twister art is nice, but it is almost a little generic and boring. Just a little bit though, but it's still beautiful. Then, moving on from there, we moved into alliances, and alliances brought us Diminishing Returns, which is a similar concept. It's more expensive. It's not as good as Time Twister, but it's very similar. So it's 2 blue and 2 colorless to cast, and you get to do the same thing. You shuffle your hand, you shuffle your graveyard, and your library together. Everybody does that and draws 7 cards, but then you also get rid of the top 10 cards of your library from the game. So it's a more expensive Time Twister that comes with a heavy cost. And this is probably because they decided that, you know what, Time Twister is too powerful. Maybe if we make it so that people lose 10 cards off the deck, we can allow them to play multiple copies of it. Because Time Twister had to be restricted. For those of you who don't know what that means, back in the long ago, when Grandpappy Mike started playing Magic, there was a restricted list, and you were only allowed to play with 1 copy of each of those cards because they were considered so powerful that they could warp the game. So they allowed everyone to still play with 1, which in all honesty is kind of weird, because then it just becomes a race to the crazy powerful cards. So the artwork on Diminishing Returns shows like a ghost punching a glass wall or something. I don't know. Like, he's got like a glowing hand up, and there's like, it looks like maybe a broken wooden wall. Is it supposed to be fixing? I genuinely do not know what is going on in the artwork of Diminishing Returns. I've never fully sorted it out. I'm like, what? Are you fingering wood? Like, what are you doing in this artwork? Whatever. They redid the artwork when it came to Eternal Masters, and in all honesty, it leaves me with different questions. The artwork is definitely better. I mean, you've got this chick standing there with these crazy blue glowing eyes. She's got a pitcher of liquid that she's pouring into a cup that is overflowing, and you've got all these tendrils of magic going out, and the crazy thing about them is she's able to slip her fingers under some and lift it up. So it's not really liquid, it's like pure magic essence. But what I don't understand is how this really represents, is the liquid pouring over supposed to be like the 10 cards lost from the hand? Because if it is, I don't understand. Because if you look at the amount, that would be like, if 7 cards is supposed to be what's being poured in the cup, the amount that's going over the edges and going all over the sides, it feels like way too much to represent 10 cards. So I don't know if this is artwork that they managed to use for something else, but I genuinely don't get how the artwork communicates the concept of Diminishing Returns. But I didn't understand how the first card did either. So in that regard, it's the same, and at least this artwork is a lot nicer. It looks a lot better than the original Diminishing Returns. Now, moving on to Time Spiral, which is from the set Time Spiral. I don't like this. I don't like when they name a card after a set. I don't think that that's a good idea, personally. It's a minor niggle that I have about it, but either way, it sits wrong with me. Boss Monster here. Did that idiot just say that Time Spiral came from Time Spiral? Oh, what are you talking about? No. Time Spiral came from Urza's Saga. The Time Spiral set came years later. How could you possibly get that confused, you fool? All right, I'm out of here. I can't be associated with this failure any longer. Now, Time Spiral at least gets the artwork it's very interesting. Let's talk about what the card does here first of all. It's 2 blue and 4 colorless, does the same thing as Time Twister, where basically everybody gets to shuffle their hand and their graveyard into their deck and draw a new hand of 7 cards. Time Spiral itself gets removed from the game, so you can see they're like, okay, the Diminishing Returns really didn't work the way we wanted to. Let's try something different. We'll make a Time Spiral where it removes itself from the game, so if they play with 4, no big deal, because they can only each use them once. But here's the problem with Time Spiral. These madmen, these absolute insane people at Wizards of the Coast at the time decided to make it also, when you play Time Spiral, you get to untap 6 lands, which is insane. I mean, up to 6 lands, so you don't have to, but who's not going to? So basically it makes it free, and that makes it way more potent in some ways than even Time Twister itself, because part of it is you cast Time Twister, you've spent some of your mana, your opponent's usually going to get to be the first one to take advantage of the new hand with the full complement of their mana. But with Time Spiral, you can actually untap all your lands, or sometimes end up ahead in mana if you have lands that tap for more than 1 mana. So Time Spiral quickly was realized to be way too powerful. This card is gross and strong. Oh my god, I love this card. And the artwork is really cool. You have what looks like some kind of stone tablet that's supposed to maybe represent the universe, and you've got these planets that are traveling around, and you've got them all in different areas. It feels, with the lightning, everything going on, it does feel like it would be sucking a bunch of planets around and messing with time, just kind of pulling it downwards. I definitely enjoy the artwork from this. A lot of these cards have really interesting artwork. Now, the next card that we're going to talk about in the sequence is a bit different than its forefathers, and I'm including it because it fits the bill in most ways, but with a very interesting twist. And that card is called Sway of the Stars. Now, this card is hideously expensive, but it's also a lot of fun. In fact, I played King Cube on the weekend, and 5 Staff was able to play one of these during our games, which is insane because it costs 10 mana. And I will link that King Cube gameplay to the end of the video. And you know what I'll do as well? For those of you who don't know what the King Cube is, I'll put up the King Cube playlist in case you want to know what one is, how to play it, and all that. I'll put those 3 things at the end of the video for you. We got my old deck video, we'll put up the King Cube list, and we'll put up the King Cube gameplay that happened on the weekend. So Sway of the Stars costs 2 blue and 8 colorless. Oh, lordy, is this expensive. It's a fun sorcery, though. So, obviously, you know part of what's going to happen. We're going to shuffle our hands. We're going to shuffle our graveyards back into our deck. We're going to draw 7 cards. Sure. But what else goes along with that? Well, Sway of the Star says, you know what? Let's go over the top with this. Grab all your permanents off the board, too, boy, and shuffle them all in, too. And it's like, what? That's insane. So it wipes the board, okay? Wipes the board completely. And it sets everybody's life to 7 as well. So you basically hit a full reset button on the game, but everybody's now at 7 life. It's pretty fun, the race to try and get back out from under it. Actually, when he played it on the weekend, the first thing I was able to do was put out a 1-1 flyer on the first turn, like, yeah, the race is on, chump! That was awesome. Anyhow, so that's the next one along the line. The artwork is pretty interesting, but I mean, I feel like it's Sway of the Stars. You've got this wizard out there atop a waterfall, perched in a very cool position. I definitely like the way the water's flowing about him and his robes are floating up in the air. He's got his hands outstretched with 7 different little, I assume what are supposed to be stars floating around, and there are no stars up in the sky. I believe what's supposed to be happening here is he's literally pulled all the stars from the sky and congealed them into 7 stars, and that's the entirety. I like it when they numerically represent things in the artwork, so I like the 7 stars, but I feel like the artwork is somewhat muddy. I mean, if you want to pull the stars out of the sky, then you kind of need to pull the moon out of the sky, but then without having the moon, you can't tell that it's nighttime. So the artwork isn't 100% clear here, which kind of sucks, but overall, it's pretty well done, not too shabby, and that was from Betrayers of Kamigawa, so that's where we are in the timeline. Next stop on our time travel line is with Time Reversal. This one's from M12. Now, 2 blue and 3 colors. You do your standard issue, take your hand, take your graveyard, shuffle it all together, everybody gets a new hand of 7 cards, and then you exile Time Reversal. So basically, it's like a fixed time spiral where they've gone ahead and go, okay, we want the card to exile itself. We definitely don't want it to untap lands. What's the proper cost? And they made it 5. And this feels like a perfectly fine place to have it. 5 does not feel like it's too cheap for an effect like this because you're not going to have much mana left over it and your opponent's going to mainly get the first swing with it after it happens. I mean, you get to decide when it happens, but your opponent really is going to get most of the advantage unless, of course, you've waited until you have an obscene amount of mana to play it, right? That situations may vary. But overall, it feels like a fairly balanced one. Now, the artwork for Time Reversal is incredible. Of the cards we're talking about, this is absolutely one of the best. Showing this wizard up on a peak, surrounded by the universe. You don't know if he's pulled himself out into space or if space is just aligned around him, but you can see these planets whirling around. It's got a sense, the whirl of like smoke and magic energy underneath him, whatever you want to call it, it gives it that rotational feel. And then you've got the planets and everything spinning around. You've got one planet that looks like it's either exploding or something smashed into it, or it's coming back together from an explosion. But either way, the movement feel of the guy and the movement, it feels like an amazing level of power where you're literally forcing the universe to reverse time. And it's not going to be, time is not going to play out the same way, right? Existence isn't going to play out the same way. I absolutely adore the card art. It's so good. It's so very, very good. The card itself is not too shabby as well. And the flavor text is great. Any oaf can conquer a kingdom. It takes true power to conquer time. Man, the feeling of arcane, just eldritch power with this is immense. It's a home run in terms of flavor. Just delicious. This flavor is like the bacon of magic. Just, I could eat it all day, baby. What's after this? We got another one before we get to the spoiler, and that is Days Undoing. Now, this is from Magic Origins, all right? And this one's only a blue and 2 colors, so this one's cheap, just like Time Twister was. And again, shuffle in your hand, shuffle in your graveyard, draw 7 cards for everybody, and then, if it's your turn, end the turn. Now that's very interesting. If you don't know what that means, they actually explain it in the little blurb, the explainer text, which is always funny with end the turn, because they had the old school card time stop that had end the turn. And end the turn is just 3 words, and then the explanation is massive. So when you end the turn, it automatically exiles all spells and abilities on the stack, including the card itself, Days Undoing. Discard down to your maximum hand size, damage wears off, and this turn and end of turn effects end. So this card gets exiled as a result. You don't get to keep the Days Undoing. It's very interesting because it's really close to the power of Time Twister, but it's fixed in that it ends your turn, so your opponent definitely will be the first one to get to take advantage of it, unless of course you manage to put out something like a Vidalcan Orrery that allows you to play it at instant speed and you play it on your opponent's turn. Because in that case, it doesn't end the turn. It would be so stupidly strong if you could actually make your opponent's turn end with this on top of getting a fresh hand. But I definitely like the balancing issues they've gone with. Giving it a 3 cost, but going your turn ends, your opponent's going to get first crack with this. It feels right, honestly. It feels like that's the exact right way to do it. The same way that Time Reversal felt like the right cast, this feels like the right ability to include if you're going to give it just a 3 casting cost. And the artwork is really nice as well. It really transmits what's going on there. You've got nighttime, right? You've got night going on, and you can see that it's actually being pulled through this mystic portal. You can see the energy of night being pulled through into day. So it really does transmit the concept of transporting through time. It's going back to earlier. It's going from night to day. So the concept of that transmission through time is very clear, and it's a lovely card. I love the contrast of the bright, beautiful day with the green kind of sunny past, and then, not sunny past, but sunny pasture. You know, you get your nice green pasture lands with your blue sky and your lazy little drifting clouds. And then you have a very bleak backset to it where you've got a barren, rock-filled mountaintop. So that contrasts nicely against the grass. And then the dark, stormy sky with the, like the sunset going on in the background definitely contrasts against the bright day sky with the happy little cloud drifting by. So that, again, absolutely beautiful. Another bacon level artwork here. Fantastic. So this all leads us to today's spoiler, which is something that totally gets me jacked for the King Cube. And actually, it's part of what helped lure me back into talking about Magic, in all honesty. And that card is Emergency Powers. Now, let's talk about the casting cost, because it's a steep casting cost. You got 1 blue, 1 white, and 5 colorless. So it's stepping outside of just being blue, but that's fine because it is in Ravnica, and Ravnica has the guild, so it makes perfect sense. That's fine. You want to align it to a particular house, so it's been aligned to Azorius. That's fine. That makes sense. Now, the interesting thing to note about this one is it's an instant. It is an instant, but it also has an ability balanced out against the instant. So it gives it more versatility, but it also has an incentive that will draw you in to wanting to play it on your turn, and we'll get to that. So, the first thing this card does, surprise, surprise, is each player shuffles their hand and graveyard into their library, then draws 7 cards. Exile Emergency Powers. Now this part right here, the exiling it, I'm not sure how I feel about this, because at 7 cost, it feels like it may not actually need to be exiled, but who knows, maybe it would be too obtuse and powerful otherwise. Maybe they've learned their lesson with these sort of cards and they're just like, nope, slap that, remove. I don't know if they did that from playtesting or just decided from the offset, you know what, we're going to have it exiled itself. But the really interesting part about this card, and what really got me jacked about it for the King Cube on top of the instant part, is the addendum. If you cast this spell during your main phase, you may put a permanent card with converted mana cost 7 or less from your hand onto the battlefield. So, unlike a lot of the other cards of this nature, this one is set up to allow you to be the first one to take advantage of it. And that makes sense from an emergency power standpoint. In an emergency, you're not going to be wanting to let other people react quickly. You're going to want to allow yourself to react quickly. So emergency powers is best either played at the very tail end of your opponent's turn during their discard end step area, because then they're not going to have the ability to play anything they draw from it aside from instants, thus giving you most of the advantage immediately as you'll start a fresh turn with all of your mana and a fresh new hand. Or you balance that against the fact that if you choose to play it during your turn, yes, your opponent will have a fresh hand for their turn, but depending on what you draw, you'll get to play something from your hand for free. And it can be a very expensive permanent. And so there's a versatility and an interesting choice to that. I really enjoy the fact that it's going, okay, so do you want a full hand on your turn to cast whatever you want, or do you want to do it now and play something for free, but then let your opponent have a crack at the first like full hand, full mana kind of setup? So I really like cards that give you that kind of versatility. For the King Cube, it seems absolutely incredible. It's just going to lead to some dirty, dirty nonsense, and I cannot wait to see how that's going to play out. Now, in terms of the artwork, I have to admit, I'm very, very underwhelmed with the artwork. It just shows what looks like a Vidalcan standing there with his arms raised. There's a bunch of like mystic law writing in the sky, which is to be expected for Azorius. There's a lot of blue in the artwork, but you can't really see what it's doing. It's just a couple of rings of like law mage artwork rings, and then you've got like a blur, big old blob of blue with nickel bolus horns coming out of it. And truthfully, even having taken a month away from Magic, I'm still so very tired of Bolas. I understand that he factors very much into this part of the storyline, but for me, it's not enjoyable. I genuinely don't like it. So the artwork to me, it doesn't transmit anything about emergency powers. If you don't know anything about nickel bolus or anything like that, you're not even going to realize those are bolus horns. You're just going to see a wizard going like this and some blue magic in front of him. So to me, this doesn't transmit the concept of what's going on at all. This doesn't transmit the concept of an emergency. It doesn't transmit the concept of emergency powers. The art is disconnected from the card itself. There's nothing that feels instantaneous about this either, because it looks like you have to come up to like a big plinth, like a pillar, with like a basin or something on it, or some kind of stone platform, depending on what that's supposed to be. I can't even make it out looking at it. And then you go, oh, and you summon up some kind of magic. So to me, the whole artwork of it is muddy, and it's a fail. Now, I don't know if this is because this artwork was meant for something else originally and the emergency powers like changed during development, but unfortunately, as someone who genuinely enjoys artwork, I have to give it a fail. It's a loss for me. So otherwise, pretty stoked about the card. I really like it from the perspective of the King Cube. I just noticed the expansion symbol. It's, oh, okay, is it supposed to be the previous symbol but turned on its head to show that everything's turned on its head and the world's in danger or whatever? The world of Ravnica is turned on its head? That's an interesting concept if that's what they're doing. All right, there's something neat about that. But either way, I definitely really like emergency powers. Artwork isn't enough to stop me from enjoying a card, especially when it comes to the King Cube, because the King Cube only